Come on in. We just went live. Okay. Hi, everyone. If you're here, let me know if you can hear me. Um, yeah, we're in a different location today because I have my husband and our COO as another guest today. So there are going to be three of us, and he's great to have on because among other things, he has rosacea, then seborrheic dermatitis that's actually um, more severe than mine. So he'd be great to use as a prop to show off what we mean by the skin's barrier and how to care for it. Um, so we'll wait a few more minutes for people to come in. But if you're here, please do let me know if you can see me and hear me okay. Yeah, and where you are watching from. Hi, Anne. It's good to see you again. I owe you an InSkin article. It's been a little crazy. So this is Swampy. This is our COO and my. Hi, Jana. Thank you. I'm glad you can hear us. Swampy might have to yell into the mic, but
I don't know if I can be heard or not this volume.
This is my other half. I'm clearly the better half.
Always.
Clearly.
Always.
And he's our COO at VMV. So I was saying that you're going to be joining us because, among other things, you have worse, sebderm and rosacea than I do. What is that? Did you cut yourself?
Yes, I shaved for today and I cut myself.
Oops.
Oops.
So if you're there, say hi. Let us know where you are watching from. Hi, Sarge. Good to see you again. Beth, hello. Yay. Oh, it's nice to see some familiar people. I do owe you guys some blog posts. It's been a little nuts. I've been preparing for, thank you, Sarge, and Jen. Yay. Hi from Pasig. Hello there. So I've been preparing for a talk on women's empowerment and women's leadership in a webinar tomorrow that is a free webinar by Q2. Maybe I can put the link here, but it'd be cool to see people there if you're interested at all in sort of how we hold up women at VMV and women's leadership and stuff. Let me see. Since we're still waiting for people to come in, I am going to see if I can put the link. Hi from Utah. That's where you are. Did I know that? So now, it must be pretty cold, yeah? Still
Yes.
in Utah.
And dark by now.
Have we been? You've
in
been to Utah.
I've been to Utah. I've skied in Utah a few times.
He's a big skier.
Was.
I am not. I'm very much a tropical kid.
Yeah.
Why still no stock of Armada? I am. COVID has been the biggest pain in the butt, obviously for a lot of companies. But among the things that I don't think a lot of people really talk about is we're having problems with stocks, but our suppliers are really having problems with stocks. So a lot of our raw materials are imported from abroad, and if you look it up, you can just Google it. There's so many problems with shipping right now, and things are just held up. We actually have a shipment in the United States that's held up because of a backlog, right? In the shipping port, and then we're waiting for ingredients and packaging to come in. So I am sorry. I know it's a total pain in the butt, but I promise you, Armada of all things is like top.
By April 10-ish, we should have available Armada in the stores.
Yeah. So that's, we're working hard on that. So
that's part of my job description.
so you can yell at him.
Yeah.
But I promise you, it's really, it's in as much as we hate being late with our customers, our poor suppliers and our poor shipping partners, they're reeling. It's been brutal. It's been kind of a bloodbath.
Also, manufacturing activity in general has been affected because social distancing and safety measures and all of that affect how you produce and how you organize the lines, and that affects your capacity to produce.
Which could be another webinar, but I won't bore you with that. But it's been tough, and I promise we're on it, especially for Armada. Check it out. Jana went from 65 degrees to snow within 24 hours.
The only thing I can think of is skiing.
Oh my God. Okay, I will, since we're 5 minutes in, I'll make sure we don't stay over. As you guys know, we like ending on time because we respect your time and my mother's certainly. So we're going to welcome you to our skin sites on the skin barrier, which I always like to describe as the most important thing about your skin that no one talks about. And I think people are talking about it slightly more. Like if you Google it, and by people I mean, consumers, lay people, because obviously in the dermatological world it is more discussed. But even there, just kind of picking up momentum, which I think is interesting considering how important it is. So it is picking up, but I think not anywhere near as much as it should be. So this will be a really interesting sort of back to basics kind of live stream. Really, really nice learning today. Remember to ask your questions in the comments, especially for VMV stuff, like the one we just answered about Armada. Ask early so that we can concentrate on, maximizing my mom's technical mind for skin when she comes on. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're putting up videos pretty much every week. And click the notification bell so you don't miss when it goes up. And also please definitely comment with ideas that you want to know, in our next live streams.
Anything you like to discuss.
Exactly, like that. Manufacturing and cosmetics. I never know, you might be interested. At the end of the live today, we will be giving out 3 travel-sized Boo Boo Bombs, which is, as you know, a major favorite. We have this all over the house. So stick around for sure and ask questions and make your comments. Getting into the topic for today. What is the barrier layer? In a nutshell, it is the topmost layer of your skin. And we'll ask my mom to really walk us through this, almost as like I don't have a diagram on me, but maybe we'll make another in-skin block. Oh, so many. Laura, shut up and don't promise first. But we have to get this up. It's a good idea. To help walk us through the skin's layers, why this is so important. It's also called the skin stratum corneum, and it's made up of specific cells that are tough cells. It's also why the layer is called the horny layer, which always makes my mom giggle, as you'll see in a bit. And all of that is held together by lipids, which act like the glue. So it's often called the brick and mortar of the skin. Our other co-host is apparently going to come in to say hello. Oh, you can't, Gav?
Yeah, I'm ending late and starting early.
Okay, why don't you say goodbye and then Jet?
Hello and
Sorry,
goodbye.
hi. I have summative. So
Okay, go.
it's
Make it happen, kid. So, brick and mortar means like the foundations, like of a building, right? And without it, stuff falls apart, which is not exactly the same thing, but it's a nice metaphor to underscore just how important the skin's barrier layer is. Each of the skin cells in this layer house so much that we need. Moisturizers, keratin, which is the protein that makes our skin strong, ceramides and cholesterol, which my mom will get into, and actually we're planning a live stream specifically on ceramides and cholesterol because that's a whole other topic. And all of that is in the lipids. So as you can probably tell already, all of this is really what keeps our skins looking firm and glowy and strong. And the barrier layer is important for everything. Everything. Moisturizing the skin, protecting it from infection. What we're seeing now, if you've been watching us before, that barrier defect has been happening because of so much of the disinfection and hand washing, which is important. We have to keep doing, but the dryness isn't the best thing for a barrier layer. It even helps in controlling acne, a healthy barrier layer. But I will leave that to my mom to explain exactly why. In the meantime, I will underscore that the fundamentalness of the barrier layer is so important so that in almost all of our products at VMV, we have monolaurin, which is lipids, right? And our clinically published organic first cold pressed virgin coconut oil, precisely because of how well they act upon, protect, and even repair the skin's barrier layer. You can shop all of our validated hypoallergenic products, again, most of them containing monolaurin and a virgin coconut oil, internationally at vmvhypoallergenics.com, in the Philippines at vmvhypoallergenics.ph. How am I on time? I'm good. And just some new things that we're launching in the United States. We're launching Afterpay because we know COVID has actually really hit a lot of people really hard, so we thought this might be helpful. And in the Philippines, Gcash. So, yay! I know people like that very much. Also, if you'd like a teleconsultation with my mother or other doctors and nutritionists that we work with, drop us a PM and we'll make that happen. And anywhere in the world, remember that you can send us your patch test results, PM us, or find the link on our website, and we can help customize recommendations for you based specifically on your allergens and possible cross-reactants. So today, expect that we will learn what the skin barrier is, why it's so important, how it can help with our top skin concerns, how to tell if it's damaged, and how to repair it. And on that note, and for those just coming in, the reason he's here, who's my other half and our COO, is because I think he's going to be a great example of a barrier layer that needs help. And it's because he has chronic seborrheic dermatitis and rosacea. I'm not spilling his stuff. He knows we talk about this. I do too.
Yeah.
And on that note, I'll be calling in my mom, Dr. Verallo-Rowell, our founding dermatopathologist. Hi, Mom.
Hello there. Hi.
Is that okay for you? Is that too high?
It's a little bit high, but I love it.
Okay, so I'm
Excuse
going to
me.
need Juanpi to scooch a little bit so he can be
I'm
seen.
moving so that I can be seen.
Okay. One thing I don't talk enough about with regards to my mom is that she is a teacher. So she teaches residents. And what she always says is, if you don't teach as a doctor, you may not be learning as much because you really have to stay at the forefront of everything to be able to teach. And she always says, I have to keep up with these sharp young minds, right? So among other things, whenever I hear her talking to her residents, I always hear her hammering home the importance of the barrier layer, the barrier layer, the barrier layer. And also as a dermatopathologist, those hyper specialists who look at the skin microscopically under a microscope, your biopsies and whatnot, and they are also cellular pathologists. She and other specialists would be the kind of hyper specialists to take care of someone, say, with Pemphigus Bulgaris, which is a condition that's kind of extreme with regards to the stratum corneum, the barrier layer. And I think it's a very interesting thing to talk about because you can really understand just how important it is. So say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Okay,
Follow the rules.
there you go. So, aw, that's so nice. Francesca says, I admire your tandem so much. Thank you very much. And we have people calling from San Pedro, from Iloilo, from Utah. I love this. Okay, so to get us started, could you give us... Oh, and I was saying the reason Juanpi's here is because I thought he'd be a good
love it.
illustration.
Perfect.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
All of the things that are
People
wrong,
seem to like your earrings as props. I figured this is a living, breathing prop.
I'll hang from your ears.
Exactly. So, could you give us the most basic, like in the skin, what are we talking about in terms of layers so that we understand what the barrier layer is? What is it? Where is it? What's it made of? Why? What does it do?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk now about barrier because all we realize what we've known for a long time. But now it's coming to the fore about how important that skin barrier really is to the beauty of the skin, to keep it. Let me tell you first that there are actually 4 components to the skin barrier. There's the physical, there's the chemical, there's the immunologic, and then there's the microbiota of that skin. Today, we've already talked about microbiota previously, so I will not go there.
But those are not layers within the stratum corneum.
No,
right?
but they're
just the-
components.
right. Okay. Got it.
They're components of that. As far as the layers, the physical layers is what she's talking about. For a prop today, I brought a scarf because I was looking at it this morning. I was thinking that topmost layer really looked like the way people will look at the skin as being composed of a scale. You know, the topmost layer is really just a scale, except that when we look at it a little bit more under the microscope, you'll notice that there is, in fact, that scale, that homogeneous looking thing, is actually a very active layer of the skin that consists of... The truth is that they're diamond shape, not brick shape. But it has been likened to what we call a mortar and brick, a brick and mortar. The bricks being all those black and white ones, the mortar being the chemical that goes in between
Like grout.
to keep it together, like grout.
Like
precisely.
grout in between your tiles.
Right. And believe it or not, there are many things that you can do about the making that barrier, the brick and mortar, in a good shape.
But what does it do? Like, why is it important? Why is it so important?
It's important because it does a lot of things. Like, for instance, water has humidity. A little bit of water needs to come into our skin, and the topical treatments that we use, it's good for it to come in also because it helps in making it okay. But then, and in addition, you have water inside the skin, and that you'd like to keep in. And what the stratum corneum does is that it helps in keeping in that skin, so that what we call the transepidermal water loss is minimized.
That's actually measured, just so you guys know, as a side note, in moisturizers.
That's right.
When you're making a claim about moisturization, there's a machine, TEWL, transepidermal water loss, that basically measures how much water is being lost.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
So then the other thing that that barrier layer does is that it really is protective. You know, they are tightly bonded to each other. There are even chemicals that are called the adherence molecules and the tight junction molecules. And they are meant to really keep those cells intact. All right? And why? Well, coming from outside, as we all know, there are particulate matters that can get to our skin from the environment, you know, whether it's airborne or nitrous oxides or
So when
chemicals
she
like
says-
chlorine.
Yeah, jumping in just a bit for some newer viewers, when she says particulate matter, that means the tiny particles that can be airborne.
That's right.
From sprays or pollution or disinfectants or
from
fragrance.
traffic, from if you're near places where they're cooking or there smoke coming out or they're making, you know, hollow blocks or whatever industry is near
mixing,
you.
yeah.
It gets into the air. They become what we call particulates, and they are actually sized into the large particulates, the medium size, and then the very tiny ones. That just like the COVID is small enough so it actually gets in, gets inhaled, and can do terrible things inside the body and not just on the
Right.
skin.
So when
So
she talks
that's what
yeah.
we want to protect ourselves from.
Right. So when
One.
we talk about the external layer of the skin being protective against the topmost layer of the skin being protective against external dangers, it's legit. This is what really protects us from infection, all these other things. So yeah, it's a big deal. So you were saying the other.
The other thing would be the sun. The sun is very electromagnetic radiation. The sun being one important one, as well as the visible light, blue lights, for instance, and even the heat called infrared that comes out from lights inside as well as reflections
Blue lights
from outside.
from your gadgets also,
Right.
The visible light. So
They can also, the physical barrier helps in keeping an integrity so that they don't penetrate so much and get into the inside of the skin, which can damage it. Okay.
Is the same logic applicable? Because one of the best practices for hypoallergenic, right, less likely to cause an allergic reaction, is using products with bigger molecules. The smaller they are, the higher the risk of an allergic reaction. And I wonder, is that a similar logic? Because the smaller they are, the more they penetrate through the stratum corneum
Right.
and can cause more problems.
As a matter of fact, nowadays, that talking about the chemicals that are, you know, able to penetrate the skin and react with it, you've heard me talk about this often enough. The chemicals in the air, from the chlorine, from the alcohol, from the other chemicals that are present in the disinfectants and in the antiseptics that we all like to use because we're so scared of the bugs in, you know, around us. Those chemicals can actually irritate the skin. And so many of my patients, because whether they're work from home people or they go outdoors, I give them large molecules of chemicals that they put on their skin to protect them, including iron oxide, by the way. In a previous talk, we talked about the fact that layering of these larger chemicals and putting them on the skin from a sunscreen that has large molecules in it, like zinc oxide or titanium dioxide,
And then foundation.
then added the iron oxide of the makeup that you're using. When they're really very sensitive or irritable in the skin, I even tell them, use the darkest one you can find and put it on. You know, you look dark, but it's much more protective against the visible light, the blue lights that assail you 8, 10, 12 hours a day from iPads and from computers.
and from the windows, right?
Right.
So it's interesting to me too, maybe to point out, in the years and years of cosmetics and treatments, everyone keeps talking about penetration, getting deeper, deeper, deeper into the skin to
Right.
act on it,
Right.
which has pluses and minuses, right? And what I really appreciate in the last few years is people have been really not moving away from that necessarily, but giving as much importance to the topmost layer. You can't ignore the topmost layer and just keep trying to penetrate through it to try to make your skin look younger. For example, this topmost layer is extremely important in looking younger, in preventing from sun and light for hyperpigmentation, for seborrheic dermatitis and
Infections
rosacea, for
also.
infections, right? The topmost layer is super important.
Let me talk about the you use lots of products that say this is good for aging skin. This is good for the collagen. Well, that's already in the second layer of the skin, and you wonder what is the truthfulness to the claims of these products for efficacy of being able to penetrate the skin.
It's not easy to penetrate that, huh? It's
not
actually
easy.
quite a challenge.
Like I told you, the barrier is very well developed to protect our body from things that come in.
yeah.
Well, what happens in these products that you're using is the active chemical in it must be of a molecular weight that is less than what we call 500 Daltons. Anything bigger than 500 Daltons, you can forget it, because they are not able to penetrate the stratum corneum, the barrier layer of the skin. So normally they are very tiny little molecules that are present, and then they add to that certain chemicals that will bind it loosely to the rest of the product, so that when you put it on the skin, that chemical will permit it to separate from the product instead of just grabbing it and keeping it in the product. That's important in the making of these products that go in. And then in addition, there is usually a chemical added to the product you're using that sort of stays put on the surface, that just gives it external, changes that make it
Right.
feel good. Feels good
Okay,
to touch,
so-
but that has nothing to do with the activity that went in from the tiniest molecules they could make it in.
Okay, so what are we learning so far? Because this is a lot. I mean, I really recognize that the barrier layer, it's like dermatology 101. There's a lot here, okay? Important things to remember. The stratum corneum is our barrier layer. It's also called the horny layer. Told ya, always giggles. And it's the brick and mortar of the skin. It's what houses our tough cells that protect us from everything external, right? Even particulates and viruses and infections. And it has gooey stuff, the lipids in the middle. And this is actually what makes us look so freaking young and strong and firm and beautiful,
Right.
right? So that's important to know. The other thing I think that she touched on that was super important is molecular size of products. And again, maybe this is a whole other live stream, but there's a lot of hoopla about penetrating deeper, deeper, deeper into the skin. That might not be the best thing. Topical steroids.
I just
for example,
came
can,
from. Sorry to
No,
interrupt.
please go.
I just came from a meeting of a new subspecialty, or rather, a new interest group we're forming in the Philippine Dermatological Society, which is on functional dermatology. Recognizing that a lot of our patients now really want to be healthy, and therefore look at different kinds of functional, medicine practices and all that. We're forming this functional dermatology. So let me introduce to you the fact that
We have so
as
much
far
to
as-
talk about, but for stratum corneum,
as
we
far
haven't
as the
even
stratum
scratched the
corneum
surface.
is concerned,
Jumping into
functional
stratum corneum.
dermatology is very important, because what contributes to that stratum corneum, to that barrier layer, believe it or not, are your diet, your sleep, presence of infections, exposure to sun, exposure to irritants and the thing, and those are all in part of functional dermatology.
Right.
So you want me to stop there? Okay.
Yes, kind of. So I want to talk a little bit about the role of the stratum corneum, the skin barrier, on common things that we're concerned about. I think we already touched on melasma, hyperpigmentation, right? Which is truly, that's what hyperpigments. Therefore, we need those bigger molecules to sit on top of the skin. First, you need to use your sun and light screen, something that protects against indoor light, as well as UVA, which penetrates windows. UVB doesn't, but UVA does. Second, layering is your friend. So sunscreen, then like foundation, powder, etc., right? And then, but in terms of things like Juanpi and I both have rosacea and seborrheic dermatitis. And you can't quite see it here, but it's
No,
quite red.
Yes.
All around here, especially.
Typically, my rosacea appears in this area.
Someone was asking the difference between just red
No,
skin
sorry,
and
the-
rosacea. And rosacea is centrofacial as well, and it's a little bulbous, and you can see the capillaries.
Yeah,
but-
actually, my rosacea appears here,
Yeah.
and then scaliness here, and dry skin
Right.
here.
So what would be the role of the stratum corneum? For example, Mom, if you look at him now, right, he has some redness that you can see already here, right? What would the role of the stratum corneum be there? Or
I want
it's-
you to see the difference with just being red skin because you've been out in the sun, or just being red skin because you got angry with somebody, or being red skin because, whatever.
Aray.
From rosacea.
Headache.
Yes.
So the way I look at his skin is the fact that, in addition to the redness that you see, I see bigger pores, right? He will tend to have dry skin rather than oily skin.
Even with the
because-
big pores.
Right, even with the big
That's
pores.
a fallacy, see?
Okay? And if you really look closely, he has dilated vessels. There, here, you can actually see some of them right here, right?
This is like dinner
And over,
for
and
us.
over here on the chin, okay, area. When you begin to see that area being red with dilated vessels, tiny little capillary vessels that you will see, at the very beginning, you have what we call rosacea, that's the erythematous type, just redness. And over time, it develops these changes so that you start to go in what we call telangiectatic rosacea, which are those tiny
Say
little capillary
that,
vessels.
folks. Let's practice.
Telangiectasia.
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 Very
And
good.
then with that, the the oil glands become active. Even though it's dry, it actually has oil glands that are bigger. They may even have a certain mite in it called demodex
Yeah.
that stimulates things so that they go from erythema to telangiectatic to papulopustular. In other words, they develop rosacea acne. He's had some acne lesions as well already.
Rarer. This
Right.
is really quite
Not so bad.
More dry.
Then
Yeah.
later on,
More
it then
flakes.
becomes the worst kind that you've seen in, I guess, name Jimmy Durante with the bulbous nose. That's called rhinophyma, and a late stage of rosacea in people who have not controlled their rosacea.
That's my future, you're saying?
If no, he
Clown nose?
he will not have that as a future
Okay.
because he really is very good about applying.
I
We
first-
just had, you can
I
imagine the
first have to
stress
say
that.
hi a Carlos in Mexico watching. Saludos al Che.
Saludos, Carlos.
Desde Mérida, Yucatán, México.
Hola,
¿Cómo
¿qué tal?
están?
En México, sí.
Y bueno, entonces
Ya.
Rosacea también.
Yo no
existe
hablo español.
En México. Si ustedes tienen preguntas en castellano, please fire away as well. Okay, so I want to go a little bit to an extreme condition that arguably most viewers, I think, will never hear about or deal with, and that's Pemphigus vulgaris.
Oh.
And the reason I want to talk about that is because it's an extreme version of when things go wrong to the stratum corneum, and I think it really illustrates well its function, what it does, and why it's important. So what's Pemphigus vulgaris?
Pemphigus vulgaris is a condition that's characterized by the presence of little blisters that they become bigger, and then if you press down on it, it spreads and becomes big. And the reason for that is, if you look now into the epidermis, so now let's consider this as this is the top layer. These are the cells that we call keratinocytes that form the rest of the epidermis. And if we go down to the bottom part
Hold
of
on.
that,
Swampy? See?
I am the pro.
if you go down to the most bottom part of that, there's what we call the basal layer of cells. They're basal in that they are the cells that have the stem cells that will produce a daughter cell, and then it starts to go up and fills the rest. But it all starts with the basal. What happens in pemphigus is that there is what we call acantholysis. In other words, there's another word.
Another word of the day, acantholysis.
Acantholysis, where the connection between one cell with the other is called a desmosome. And when that desmosome breaks away from the other, you therefore have an acantholytic cell, breaks up, and then you
Okay.
have fluid. And that's what produces the blister.
My
You
attempt
didn't want to
at
go
trying
there.
to summarize this, my understanding of
Thank you.
Pemphigus vulgaris is that the glue that holds together the cells doesn't function.
Nothing to do there.
It's all here.
The problem is
Oh,
at
I
the
was so
basal
wrong.
cell.
Okay.
This is why I was amused. I said, oh, okay, you want to go there. That's a little bit deep.
Okay.
That's deeper.
But it's the same thing. The glue doesn't work, right? The stuff that holds the skin cells together doesn't work.
No.
Okay.
The cells are bonded by what we call what did I call it?
The mortar?
The mortar.
The grill?
No, the mortar is over there. The desmosomes.
Okay.
The desmosomes are structures that go from one cell to another. Okay. And it's a protein. This is immunological problem already.
Already.
There's something. So let's go back to here. Let me get my scarf back.
Okay.
Thank you. So we're talking about the top layer of the skin now, which is this one.
But there was something about when the lipids there were not.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
mentioned that when the connection between the cells
Yeah, it's not.
is breaking, that
yeah.
desmodomes, I think.
Desmosome.
When that
Yeah.
breaks, the connection between the cells separates, and I guess it lets liquid from the body seep out.
But it's deeper in
Yeah,
the,
yeah, it's deep in the base,
Okay.
but then the liquid comes out,
So
and you have a blister.
and
Okay.
and it creates blisters.
how is that different from like eczematous blisters then?
The eczematous blisters happen in that entire epidermis, where the chemicals like, let's say, chlorine is able to get through the top barrier, your
Okay.
barrier, then be able to go into the top cells, these prickle cells is what we call them, and produces
Prickle cells!
and
That's really cute.
and produces little bubbles in that epidermis. So it would be basically, hold this for me, please.
Yes.
So it would be, it's able to penetrate the barrier of the skin. The
Yeah.
barrier is compromised either because it's damaged, like in rosacea or some other kind of skin problem with the top layer, so that chemical is able to come here. The cells from down here go up, react with it, express what we call inflammatory cytokines. So you have little blisters forming.
Okay.
That's eczema.
So a big difference is that Pemphigus vulgaris occurs deeper down
Right.
near the base, and the other one,
the base.
Right.
the
It's
eczema
much more
is
the surface.
in
over
the
here.
surface.
Right here.
Yeah.
But this is the key thing that we need to protect because it's
Right.
what protects the thing
Okay.
happening inside.
And in terms of acne, the role of the stratum corneum would be what?
In acne, that is different. The stratum corneum is
Does it have any at all role?
sure. If, for instance, you use too many drying things on the skin because you feel you're very oily, so you wash, you scrub, and you actually produce a plug at the hair follicle. The hair follicle is plugged, even though the follicle is inside the dermis in the second layer. Once that's plugged and you're still producing oil, it goes up and it cannot go out, and so therefore the folliculitis or the inflammation occurs.
Right. Okay, guys, I'm going to interrupt very quickly because we have so many great questions again, and then we'll get more into this. So from Beth Ramos, hi, Doctora, what skincare products can you recommend for a nursing mom? Can I use a whitening product? So she won't necessarily talk about specific products. I can mention that later, but maybe some things to look out for.
For
Yeah.
a nursing mother, you don't want to use anything that has an active ingredient in it.
Yes.
For instance, for bleaching products, you will be told to use hydroquinone, for instance. These are generic names, so I can mention them. Hydroquinone, you'll be asked to even use things that are vitamin A derived, like retinoic acid or retinol. You will be
Not
asked
yet.
to use other chemical ingredients. I will not mention them here anymore. That are probably safe, but they do penetrate
Some.
Remember, the
Yeah.
melanocytes that produce your pigmentation is not up here in the barrier. It's not. It's in
A
the
little lower.
basal cell. You know where we were talking about pemphigus at the basal cell? That's also where your melanocytes are.
Right.
Those are the cells that produce pigment.
But
And then
okay.
it has,
Yeah.
you know, branching. I know that delivers the pigment
Right.
here.
So what she was saying earlier, though, if you guys remember, no, was to focus on this topmost layer because you don't want anything, let's say, that attempts to try to treat this right now when you're either pregnant or nursing. And this is quite effective because it's really like adding layers and layers of protection on top of the skin. So sun and light screen indoors and out can help.
Let me tell you what I often tell my young doctors. There are many causes for why you hyperpigment, right? It may be due to a drug that you're taking. Lots of people think the birth control pills, and this is true, contribute to that. Your pregnancy produces pigmentation.
Melasma.
Going away from all the internal problems, including even diabetes and things like that, or the drugs that you're taking for the diabetes or the hypertension and all that, can be photosensitizing. So those produce pigmentation. But let's go from there to the other chemicals that are more external.
Okay, I'm going to stop this a bit because we do have lots of questions, and we do have a live stream on hyperpigmentation and melasma, on indoor and outdoor light, and there's a vmvinskin.com article on nursing and pregnancy in
Bottom
particular.
line, I teach my residents the number one thing that discolors you is really the sun and indoor lights. The blue light from your gadgets, the light reflected through your window glass from outdoor sun still has UVA, and that is pigmenting.
Yeah.
And of course, when you go outdoors.
And just watch out for photoallergens like
So you put on
disinfectants and bleaches and fragrance and aromatherapy and
Correct.
essential oils. Okay, guys asking, how long do you have to wash your face, and is exfoliation really necessary? I have dry skin.
If you have dry skin, why are you exfoliating?
I don't know. I actually think that some surface gentle exfoliation. So here's the thing. I find, when people say exfoliation, we're talking about a gamut, about this
Yes.
big of what we mean.
Right. Okay. And it ranges from
Right?
mild to.
Exactly. So if you have dry skin like he does, you use a scrub, right, as a cleanser?
Sometimes.
The 1635?
Yeah, which is very soft. I
But
don't
it's a
use it.
super soft
Yeah,
scrub,
very,
right?
very, very
As
soft.
opposed to some people who then want to exfoliate with those brushes
And
that
scrub.
bacteria, right?
Yeah.
No one needs that. You don't actually need to scrub like you're trying to take it off your skin. You just want a gentle massage. We always say don't scrub any one area of skin for longer than a second or two.
That's right.
When I wash my face in the shower, it's super fast. It's not even 5 seconds. It's really fast. Just to get the surface grime out.
And remember, the fourth component of the barrier is the microbiota. Those are your commensal organisms that live there, help you out in so many things we'll not talk about right now. But it is a very important part of your skin. It produces what we call the acid mantle that keeps the acidity. That acid mantle is very important because the enzymes that are needed in order to have a good immune reaction of your skin, that also is facilitated by the acidity of your skin.
Yeah.
It's important for taking care of
Yes.
organisms that come walking in and go beyond the commensals.
Colonize, yeah.
Right. So
sharing my experience, if I use a product that has a scrub that is even a little bit hard, I start feeling irritation and sensitivity
Very
even
quickly.
after. So I use very soft
Yeah.
scrubs and just
Very
very
good.
gentle. What Laura was saying.
And we know people in colder climates or climates like Argentina or some areas of the U.S. that are really seasonal, and they'll switch cleansers.
That's
They'll
right.
use like something with a soft scrub in the hotter months where it's very humid, and then they'll switch to just a cream cleanser with no exfoliation during the colder months. My sister does that too.
I have
She's really
patients who
irritated.
come to me when they're really very dry already and irritated and all. You know what I tell them? If it was good enough for Cleopatra, it should be good enough for you. Use the oil, whether coconut or olive.
It's great for cleansing if you have
Use
dry
it for
skin.
cleansing
Okay.
only and nothing
so
else.
Quilino is asking, can we skip on moisturizer when there's already essences and serums? Would a thin layer of VCO be all right to seal it all in?
Depends upon the basic dryness of your skin.
Yeah.
The serums are serums because they are tiny molecules. This is the active component I was talking about. But then you have to seal it in so it stays put. And that can be done with coconut oil because although it is just an oil, it is an amazing oil. It has both
Fantastic.
occlusive and humectant properties. But if you're really on the very dry skin, in addition even to that oil, coconut oil, I'll tell them to put on a pure Vaseline, pure Vas Alba is what I call it,
Yeah,
like
that-
what
that
is
Vaseline
in.
might be
You have a
fragrance,
nice product that I like.
pure
really.
petrolatum.
Pure
is what we're
petrolatum.
looking for. No
So
fragrance.
then that's
very
really
pure.
occlusive, and it keeps that serum, allows it to even have better entry into the skin, so
Really
it goes
seal it.
deeper into the
Let me get into
euphorium.
that a little bit because it's important. She loves virgin coconut oil and petrolatum together, in part because they're both so good for the barrier layer.
That's right.
If I'm not mistaken, virgin coconut oil has lipids that are native, fatty acids, right? That are native to the skin and can help actually replace
Repair.
lost lipids. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons she likes it very, very much. In addition, it provides some occlusion. Occlusion means, again, back to this layer thing, it forms a palisade, like this woven thing on top of it that keeps water in. I always think of it as akin to moist wound healing. You know, before you would keep the wound open to dry and whatever,
Right.
and now you want to cover it, and it keeps that whole area happy and moist, right?
In addition to what she just mentioned about what coconut oil does on the skin, besides being gentle, besides repairing the lipid bilayer, besides being a good humectant, is that it is antiviral and antibacterial.
That too.
And
which helps.
remember, during these times, it's not just COVID, but the secondary organisms
Yeah,
that
staph and
are
stuff.
able to light upon our skin that you want to get rid of to help the commensal to do their job
Yeah.
rather than having to fight these invaders. Okay?
Commensal.
The commensals are the microbiota.
There you go. The native stuff that lives naturally with us that do an important function. Sorry, one last note on that. Dryness, especially when it's chronic and sort of excessive, could be a sign of irritation already. So maybe that's something to look at and just make sure nothing that you are using contains typical allergens, the fragrances, blah, blah, blah.
Or irritants.
Yeah, Jana again, and she's in Utah, which is snowing right now.
Hi there,
What
Jana.
is a good way to protect, keep the skin inside your nostrils from becoming so dry that it cracks and bleeds because of allergies in the environment, like excessive heat, cold, and no
Petrolatum.
humidity? Oh my God, this happens to me all the time.
I'm so glad you asked that. Utah, it's snowing, but it's beautiful,
Gorgeous, yeah.
skiing place.
Exactly.
Enjoy. I have a good friend there that I just talked with a month ago. Anyway, what you can do is get the coconut oil. I use my fingers. I insert
I do not.
Yeah, I know they don't like it. I love my own
I
body.
have no problem.
And I put it inside so that it goes in, and then I inhale. Okay?
I use
Do
tissue.
it 2 more times. What does that do? The coconut oil goes in. Remember, coconut oil is not just an ordinary lotion or whatever. It consists of pure triglycerides of that are small to medium to even longer ones. There are organisms that are commensals. They break down that coconut oil into the fatty acids that are important to repair the dry skin that is breaking down. So it's a repairer of the tissue in the mucous membrane, and at the same time, it also coats it. All right.
VCO is good in the mucosa.
Then,
Everywhere.
if you're really very dry and having blood already because of that very dry skin, get a pure petrolatum again and insert it in. You can even just place it at the edges and go there, and it will go in, and that will help you a lot. I promise it'll be very wonderful. You'll feel so much better quickly.
Okay, I'm gonna jump ahead to Carlos in Mexico. So en la Rosacea recomiendan medicamento sistémico en píldoras como metamizol. Is that correct? So for rosacea, they recommend systemic medication,
Oral medication, like
medication, like pills, like metamizol.
Yeah. What those drugs for, metamizole is really an if I I hope I'm correct here, but metamizole I think is the one that is anti-scabies, anti-mite.
Demodex.
Demodex. But there are also other drugs that they recommend now that you take internally, and some of them are based upon a receptor, the nerve receptor that stimulates the skin cells to behave the way they do.
Right.
There has been side effects to it, and so people kind of, don't take it so much.
I'm gonna.
If I can share my experiences, if it gets bad, it's just a little bit of patience and being very moisturizing, like 5 times a day. When I go to the winter or in very harsh climate, I tend to develop my rosacea and my scaliness very quickly. And if I am disciplined and patient and I put in moisturizer 2-3 times a day, it just helps a lot. I don't know if it gets to a worse kind of rosacea, but
I'm gonna add a few things here. I'm gonna ask you to bear with me, and I'm testing myself also here with her.
Okay.
Rosacea is multifactorial. Entonces no es una píldora. It's not one pill like for psoriasis or whatever, right? Where you have an injection that works very well. It really is multifactorial, and it's inflammatory. It's an inflammatory disease. So many things go into play, no? Para empezar, we would always say un test de parche, a patch test to see what allergens you specifically need to avoid, because the more you use anything that stresses your skin, allergenos included, it can cause inflammation.
yeah.
Right? So anything that causes inflammation in rosacea is no. Entonces, alcohol, calor,
Todas las cosas divertidas.
emociones muy fuertes, very spicy food, some of these things can really cause the rosacea to flare because it's inflammatory. So anything that can be stress relieving, so meditation, anti-inflammatory diet has been shown to work. She did a great study on psoriasis. So coconut oil to cook, no junk food, no processed food. On top of that, very good sun and light screen, because the sun obviously will trigger that redness as well. And then things like Demodex mites. So some antimicrobial care can help. And then on top of that, the barrier repair, the virgin coconut oil. So it's not to use, ¿cómo se llama?
Metamazole.
It's
Metamizole.
not, claro. So metamizole might work, but it probably
It's just
will
one of
not
the
work
things.
alone.
Yes,
¿no?
right.
Entonces tenemos que mirar todo el sistema, lo que está comiendo, lo que estás aplicando en la piel, absolutamente todo, manejar el estrés, todo. Sorry, go
Also,
ahead.
whatever the cause, he mentioned some of them: the weather, the dryness, the irritability, etc. The one important thing is that any of those causes will produce the inflammation, which is, and there's a fantastic guy in San Diego University, Dr. Gallo. Dr. Gallo did a fantastic
Gallo,
study.
espectacular. Yeah, very good.
Study on what is the pathway of the inflammation. So he found out that it is an innate immunity response where the catalycidins, LL34, okay, just mention those, are the ones that are stimulated. And he found that a certain chemical called azelaic acid
Can be helpful.
can be helpful in, in making that inflammatory pathway.
And its
you know,
friend,
right.
which is less irritating, potassium
Exactly.
azelaic diglycinate.
There.
Carlos, al final del día, si quiere, escríbenos,
Yeah.
¿no? Que podemos dar recomendaciones más completas.
Detalladas.
Exacto. Y más específico para usted.
Dr. Gallo said something that was cute. He said, there were so many clinical studies already where normally it's from bench to the clinics. This particular chemical, there were so many clinics already, and then he did the bench.
Yeah.
Tell you, I was one of those that did the original studies on the clinics of azelaic acid for acne, for melasma, and then later on for rosacea. And I was always wondering, why is it so good for so many things? And there you are, because its basic event is really that LL34 catalycidin pathway. And so therefore, in inflammation there, I use that azelaic diglycinate, the salt of azelaic acid, which is less irritating on the skin. I use it for inflammatory conditions, rosacea, contact dermatitis, post-surgery,
Gives me an oral
etc.
solution. Okay.
Okay.
Jumping ahead because we have about 5 more minutes. So get your questions in. Sarge is asking, is there any technology or machine or laser procedure, I'm going to add here maybe like either a facial or a peel, that is really safe, can be added to repair and better care for our skin barrier on a monthly basis?
There are so many
There you go.
of those. But me, I'm a little bit anti any machine. Lots of people will disagree with me on this. But any machine to me that has electromagnetic radiation, in other words, it's based either on UVB, UVA,
Heat,
uh,
radiation. Yeah.
you know, the what do you call UV visible light, and then infrared.
Yeah.
Listen to that, because people will tell you, I have an infrared light that you can use, or I have a UVA, or I have an ultra whatever, which is still part of
Very
the
popular.
longer wavelength.
She's not a fan.
I'm not a fan.
Because that thing can really damage the skin and cause hyperpigmentation. She is a fan.
Not only that,
of air
they
jet
break
propulsion.
down the lipids.
That
They
too.
break down lipids.
There you go.
And I'm always worried about the brain cells and the lipids that surround them. And it took about 50 years for people who were treated with the X-ray that was discovered by Madame Curie and the
Okay.
other. Okay, I will not go there.
Okay, so, but she is a fan of air jet propulsion, which is like a purely physical thing that has no radiation. And that machine, some people have.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable saying that machine?
Yes.
Well studied. It's called the
I
Energet.
like it because it's just energy.
Very
Pure
nice.
energy. It's not
And it
electromagnetic
actually,
radiation.
what it does is air jet propulsion, and it's great for scars that were once thought to be impossible, like stretch marks and acne pock marks, deeper ones. But it also injects collagen and elastin or something.
whatever you want.
Yeah, so it's a nice, it could be great for the barrier. Okay, Aya is asking, I have a damaged skin barrier. Will sunscreen irritate my skin?
It depends upon the sunscreen you use. If you use a sunscreen with ingredients to which you're allergic to or irritated by, have a patch test. You will patch test to those chemicals that are present in the sunscreen. If you're allergic or something, don't use it. Use something else more purely physical, for instance. That you can use because they're large molecules and
Yeah, and
you will not be
I'd
irritated.
actually
by
double
it.
down on that, Aya. Using a sun and light screen, particularly a physical one or mineral one, more correctly called an organic one, that doesn't use nanoparticles, that's thicker molecules,
Yes.
will actually probably help a damaged skin barrier
Correct.
because it's like wearing a coat. It's really like a protective layer on top of your skin. So, yeah, patch test is a great idea to make sure you use something that you're not allergic to, and then choose something with larger molecular size.
Remember that many of the
nanoparticles.
ingredients in sunscreens that are chemicals are well-known photoallergens. In other words, they may protect you from certain thing you want, but they also are photosensitive.
Or if they smell good, don't use them. Because that fragrance is a top photoallergen. Faye is asking, do we still need to add hyaluronic acid and ceramides in our skin regimen to strengthen our skin barrier, or is VCO is enough? What a smart question.
The
Faye.
top layer barrier is composed
Very,
of
very-
cholesterol, ceramide, and fatty acids. Those are the basic chemicals that are present within the barrier layer of the skin.
will
So
they
this
help
is the
when
reason
applied?
why barrier products nowadays contain cholesterol,
Ceramides.
ceramide,
So you would suggest it?
and but depends again upon
The formulation.
formulation, right?
Smell it.
Read it
Look at the
well.
allergens,
Read it well.
right?
If they come from
Okay, so
Yeah.
theoretically, it's a good idea. I'm sorry, I'm rushing ahead because I know she has to go. So, theoretically,
Right,
it's a
I do
great
have a little-
idea. Exactly, under the VCO, maybe even under petrolatum, right? All of that under petrolatum or under sunscreen, then petrolatum. But you really need to look at the ingredients to see if there are allergens there. Quick, best ingredients for skin barrier as asking jelly, gentle, gentle, gentle. Nothing harshly disinfectant that will harm the microbiota. VCO, monolaurin, petrolatum, and a sunscreen with bigger molecules.
there you go.
Okay.
Excellent.
And then, greetings from your Caviteña, cake baker, Mick Santos, saying hello. Okay, are lasers safe? I think we answered that already. Anna, I can repeat it later if you need me to. But for now, I'm gonna let her go, and then and he will also go. I'm being abandoned.
Thank you so
And
much.
I have a meeting.
Okay,
sorry.
bye you two. Mwah. 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 Okay, all right. It's back to just me.
Thank you, Wampi. That was very good.
Okay, so very quickly, guys. I hope you learned a lot. It's really a lot. I actually wonder if we shouldn't do a part 2 of this because there's, and then hopefully, maybe what we'll do is a Zoom live stream or something so that we can put charts on the screen and you can really see what this looks like, which I think could be super interesting, or even slides of the actual cells because she has that stuff. Reminder, most of our stuff contains monolaurin and our virgin coconut oil. If you'd like a teleconsult with her or any other doctor or nutritionist we work with, drop us a PM. You can also PM us your patch test results and we can help customize recommendations for you based on your allergens and possible cross-reactants. We're also really good at customizing regimens for you. We have a questionnaire of about 20 questions where we can help go through your history and your goals and make really detailed suggestions. And you can find our stuff on vmvhypoallergenics.com, which also says where we're available in different countries or in the Philippines at vmvhypoallergenics.ph. And we have 3 winners today. So this is interesting. We were talking earlier about what you could put in your nostrils, no? This is a great one. And every time she said petrolatum, that's really what Boo Boo Bomb is it's pure petrolatum plus monolaurin plus virgin coconut oil. So while I wait for our winners, oh, sorry, we've forgotten our prop.